Now, you need to understand something about Bruce Lee in 1967. He was not yet a movie star. Enter the Dragon was still 6 years away. He was a martial arts instructor in Los Angeles, training a private list of clients that included Steve McQueen, James Coburn, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was developing a revolutionary new fighting philosophy he called Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist. He was obsessed, with almost frightening intensity, with one question. What is the most efficient way to stop a human being? Not defeat, not win on points, stop. He trained 6 hours a day. He ran 5 miles every morning before the city woke up. He did fingertip push-ups on 2 fingers. He could perform a 1-inch punch that launched men twice his size across a room. He had been clocked throwing punches so fast that early cameras couldn't capture them on film. Production crews had to ask him to slow down so the audience could see his hands. When Bruce Lee read what Ali said, he didn't get angry. He got curious. He reached out through a mutual contact, a Hollywood producer who moved in both worlds, and sent Ali a message. Simple, direct, respectful. I would like to meet. Ali agreed. He thought it would be an interesting afternoon. A little sparring, some laughs, a story to tell at parties. He told his trainer Angelo Dundee he was going to go play with a kung fu guy. Dundee wasn't concerned. He would be later. The gymnasium belonged to a man named Ed Parker, the founder of American Kempo Karate, one of the most respected martial artists on the West Coast. Parker had seen both men train separately. He'd watched Ali work a speed bag until the bag was a blur. He'd watched Bruce Lee break a wooden board with a strike so fast Parker had blinked and missed it completely. When Parker heard the two were meeting, he insisted it happen in his gym. He wanted to witness it. He wanted a controlled environment. He also quietly told 2 of his senior students to be ready, just in case. 15 people were present. Ed Parker, a handful of Parker's students, 2 of Ali's people, Bruce Lee's training partner, a man named Dan Inosanto, a few others who have, over the decades, remained deliberately unnamed. Ali arrived first. He came in loose, comfortable, wearing a white t-shirt and boxing shorts. He shadowboxed lazily in the corner, his movement effortless, like a man stretching before a casual jog. He was not taking this seriously. That was his first mistake. Bruce Lee arrived exactly on time. He wore a simple black training outfit. He bowed to Ed Parker. He acknowledged the room. He did not shadowbox. He did not stretch dramatically. He stood near the center of the mat and waited, completely still. Ali wandered over. He looked down at Bruce Lee, a genuine physical down, 6 inches of height difference, 85 pounds weight difference, and smiled his enormous smile. "You know," Ali said, almost warmly, "I like you. You got courage just showing up." Bruce Lee said nothing for a moment. Then, "Show me your jab." Ali blinked. "What?" "Your jab. Show me what it looks like." Ali laughed. He looked over at his corner man, a short barrel-chested man named Ray, and shared a look. Then he turned back and fired a jab into the air. Sharp, explosive. Even at half speed, it moved like a whip crack. The room felt it, the displacement of air, the violence of potential in the movement. Bruce Lee watched it without expression. "Again," he said. Ali fired it again, this time with a little more snap, showing off just slightly. Bruce Lee nodded slowly, studying it, not as a fan, as a scientist. "You pull back at the end," Bruce Lee said quietly, very slightly, before full extension. The room went still. Ali's smile didn't disappear exactly, it just thinned, because Bruce Lee was right. It was a technical truth, a microscopic habit, something that existed in only 1/10,000th of a second, something that Ali's own coaches had noticed and tried to address years ago, something that no casual observer, no untrained eye should have been able to detect, but Bruce Lee had seen it, in 2 repetitions. "That's where I'll be," Bruce Lee said simply, "in that space."
Ali looked at him for a long moment. Something shifted in his eyes, still confident, but now attentive. The two men squared off.
What happened next lasted approximately 4 minutes. 4 minutes that no one in that gymnasium ever fully agreed on. Here is what everyone confirmed. They circled each other first. Ali, with his characteristic upright stance, hands low, chin up, the style that had baffled and beaten every heavyweight who faced him. Bruce Lee in a modified Jeet Kune Do ready position, his lead hand extended, body bladed, weight distributed in a way that looked almost casual but allowed movement in any direction within a single heartbeat. Ali tested him. A few light probing jabs, not full power, not yet, but real enough, fast enough to respect. Bruce Lee slipped every single one. Not blocked, not deflected, slipped. His head moved 3 inches, 4 inches, just enough, his body following in a liquid coil, and the punches sailed past like they were aimed at a ghost. Ali's eyes changed. The smile was fully gone now. He threw a combination, jab, cross, hook, the sequence that had ended careers, that had sent men crumpling to canvas in stadiums full of screaming people. Bruce Lee wasn't there for any of it. He had moved, not backward, but forward and through, angling off the line of attack, his body finding the one space where none of Ali's punches could follow. And suddenly he was beside Ali rather than in front of him, inside the arc of the hook, close enough that Ali could feel the heat radiating off him. Ali reset. He was breathing slightly harder now, not from exertion, from focus. He had never fought anything that moved like this. Ed Parker would later say, privately to students he trusted, never in print, that watching Bruce Lee move against Ali was like watching someone fight a different game on the same board. Ali was playing chess, a high-level grandmaster tier version of chess, but Bruce Lee wasn't playing chess. He was playing something else entirely, something that used the chessboard as a mere starting point before shedding its rules completely. Dan Inosanto, Bruce Lee's training partner, stood against the wall and watched with his arms folded. He had trained with Bruce for years. He had felt those hands. He knew what they could do. He was the only person in the room who knew what was coming. Everyone else was still processing what they were seeing. Ali decided to change approach. He stopped throwing combinations and started moving, really moving, showing Bruce Lee what he showed everyone who'd ever faced him, the footwork, the absolutely supernatural footwork that made a 220-pound man float like something that had no business being that graceful. Ali danced, he circled, he feinted, head fakes, shoulder rolls, shifting weight from foot to foot in ways that made his body a question mark. It was a psychological tactic as much as a physical one. See how I move? Can you track this? Can you predict this? Bruce Lee tracked it. He tracked it completely. His eyes, and everyone in the room noticed this, never moved frantically. They didn't chase Ali's feet or his shoulders or his hands. They focused somewhere between Ali's chest and his hips, reading the root of every movement before it traveled to the extremities. Bruce Lee was not watching what Ali was doing, he was watching what Ali was about to do. Ali felt it. You could see it in his body, the slight adjustment, the recalibration, that feeling of being read. For the first time in a very long time, Muhammad Ali did not know what to do with that. He stopped moving. He planted his feet. He decided to simply be what he was, the most dangerous puncher on the planet, and he ripped a right hand. Not a test, not a probe, a real one, the kind that changed faces. 3 seconds. In 3 seconds, everything that followed happened. Bruce Lee was already moving before the punch fully committed. He hadn't reacted. Reacting is too slow, Bruce had said 100 times to his students. React and you're already behind. He had read and acted on the reading before the threat arrived. He stepped into the punch, not away from it,
Into it, into the pocket, past the power, inside the zone where the arm has no leverage, no force, where a punch becomes just a gesture. His left forearm redirected Ali's extended right arm, not a block, a guide, 2 inches of contact that sent the momentum sideways, a ship's rudder adjusting the course of an ocean liner.
And then, Bruce Lee's right hand moved. Not a punch, not a strike in the traditional sense. Something he called a straight blast, a forward-driving palm-heel shot, traveling maybe 6 inches in total distance, carrying the full coordinated weight of his shoulder, his hip rotation, his forward momentum. It connected with the left side of Ali's chest. The sound it made was not loud. It was a dull, solid thud, the sound of mass meeting mass at an unexpected speed. What happened to Muhammad Ali after that sound is the part no one fully agreed on. What they all agreed on is this: his feet left the ground. Not far, maybe an inch, maybe less, but they left the ground. And then Ali sat down. Not fell, not crumpled, sat. His body simply folded. His knees bent. His enormous frame descended in a single controlled motion, like a building being demolished floor by floor, calmly and completely, until he was sitting on the mat of Ed Parker's gymnasium in Los Angeles in 1967, blinking. The room did not react. There was no gasp, no shouting, no chaos. There was silence so complete you could hear the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. 15 people held 15 breaths. Muhammad Ali sat on the mat and pressed one hand to his chest. Not in pain, or not only in pain, in something harder to name. In the expression of a man who has just encountered the edge of something he didn't know had edges. He looked up at Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee stood exactly where he had been when he threw the strike. He hadn't moved. His right arm was back at his side. His breathing was even and slow. He looked down at Ali with an expression that was not triumph, not satisfaction. It was closer to confirmation, like a mathematician who has just proven a theorem he already knew was true. 20 seconds passed. Then Ali's mouth curved, slowly, into that smile. But it was a different smile. It wasn't the showman's smile, the champion's performance. It was something quieter, more private, something almost like wonder. "What," Ali said slowly, still sitting, "was that?"
Nobody moved to help him up, not because they didn't want to, but because some moments, rare, once-in-a-lifetime moments, carry a gravity that makes movement feel like violation, like talking during the last note of a symphony. You feel it in your chest. You don't move. You don't breathe. You just witness. Muhammad Ali sat on that mat for 11 seconds. 11 seconds. Count them. For a man whose entire identity was built on never going down, never staying down, never letting anyone believe even for a fraction of a moment that he could be stopped, 11 seconds on that mat was an eternity. Then he pressed his palm flat against the floor, shifted his weight, and stood up, slowly, deliberately, with every ounce of the dignity that had carried him through 15 rounds with Frazier, through prison, through exile, through every force in the world that had tried to break him. He stood up, rolled his shoulders, looked at Bruce Lee, and said, "Again." Ed Parker exhaled for the first time in what felt like several minutes. Dan Inosanto remained still against the wall, but his eyes changed. A flicker of something passed across his face. Not surprise. He'd seen Bruce move like that 1,000 times. What he saw was respect for Ali. Deep, genuine respect. Most men, after that streak, would have found a reason to stop. An injury suddenly remembered. A prior engagement. Men with far less pride than Ali had quietly walked away from sessions with Bruce Lee with their hands pressed to their ribs and their ego intact, telling a story at dinner later that night that sounded nothing like what had actually occurred. Ali asked to go again. That told Bruce Lee everything he needed to know about Muhammad Ali. He nodded. They squared off a second time, and this time, everything was different. Ali abandoned the showmanship entirely. Gone was the performance, the floating, the theatrical feinting designed as much for the audience as for the opponent. What replaced it was something rarer and more dangerous. Muhammad Ali, stripped of ego, operating on pure instinct and raw athletic genius. He was hunting now. He came forward, cutting the angle, taking away Bruce Lee's lateral space, trying to push him to the wall, to limit the geometry that Bruce Lee used as a weapon. Smart, tactically sound, the kind of adjustment that separates elite fighters from merely great ones. Bruce Lee let him come.
3 steps back. 4. Angling just slightly with each step, not retreating in a straight line, but on a curve, drawing Ali forward, letting Ali feel like the distance was closing, letting the trap feel like progress. Ali threw a jab. Bruce Lee parried it downward, one hand, knife edge, redirecting the force toward the floor, and simultaneously fired a lead hand finger jab toward Ali's eyes. He stopped it 1 inch from Ali's face. The room inhaled. Ali froze. His body's instinct, flinch, pull back, protect the eyes, fired before his mind could override it. A half-inch backward lean, involuntary, undeniable. Bruce Lee lowered his hand. He wasn't demonstrating cruelty. He was making a point. Clinical, precise. Your eyes, the gesture said. I can reach your eyes before you can protect them. Ali understood. His jaw tightened. He reset. You're fast, Ali said. Not a compliment, not exactly. More like a man recalculating. Speed is not the point, Bruce Lee said quietly. Position is the point. For the next 90 seconds, an eternity in this kind of exchange, they moved together in something that the witnesses would later struggle to describe accurately. It was not a fight. It was not sparring in any traditional sense. It was closer to a conversation conducted in physics. 2 elite minds inhabiting 2 completely different frameworks of combat, probing each other's language, testing vocabulary, searching for the edge where their worlds stopped making sense. Ali threw. Bruce Lee answered. Bruce Lee moved. Ali recalculated. Back and forth, a call and response. 2 instruments playing in different keys, finding and losing harmony over and over. What the witnesses all noted, unanimously, was the sound, or rather the absence of it. No trash talk, no grunting, no performed aggression, just footsteps on the mat, the whisper of movement through air, occasional contact, controlled, measured, nothing full force, and then the reset, silence, then movement, then silence again. It sounded like nothing so much as 2 men thinking out loud.
Then Ali did something unexpected. He stopped moving. Completely. He dropped his hands, not all the way, but noticeably, and he looked at Bruce Lee with an expression that had no combat in it at all. "Can I ask you something?" Bruce Lee waited. "Where do you see it, the strike, before you throw it? Where do you see it coming from?" The room shifted. This was no longer a contest. Something else was happening. Bruce Lee considered the question for a moment. He seemed to decide something. "I don't see the strike," he said. "I see the weight shift. The strike is just what happens after the weight shift. By the time the strike exists, it's already finished." Ali was quiet for several seconds. "So you're not reacting to what I do. I'm reacting to what you're about to do, before you know you're about to do it." Another silence. Ali slowly raised his hands again, but he was shaking his head slightly, not in disbelief, in something approaching genuine awe, an emotion that Muhammad Ali had almost no prior experience feeling in any gymnasium at any point in his life. "That," Ali said, almost to himself, "is not fair." Bruce Lee almost smiled. "No," he said, "it's not." They went one final time. This one, the third exchange, lasted less than 8 seconds. 8 seconds that Edward Parker described to his senior students years later in hushed tones as the most concentrated display of human physical capability he had ever witnessed in 4 decades of martial arts training. Ali came in low. He'd adjusted his approach, changed the angle of his entry, trying to neutralize Bruce Lee's ability to slip outside. He dropped his level slightly, brought his chin down, tucked his right hand high. Textbook. Brilliant. The kind of micro-adjustment that a world champion makes without being told, just by feel, just by the accumulated intelligence of 10,000 hours of combat. It should have worked. Against anyone else alive, it would have worked. Bruce Lee didn't slip this time. He didn't parry, didn't redirect, didn't angle away. He stepped off the line, 45 degrees, one step, and he was suddenly behind Ali's lead shoulder in the blind quadrant, the one sector of space where Ali's eyes and his hands could not simultaneously follow. And from there, Bruce Lee hit him again. Not with the palm heel this time, an open hand strike to the back of Ali's left shoulder, controlled, a fraction of his actual power, but delivered with such precision of targeting, such perfect structural alignment, that the force traveled not into the muscle, but through it, into the joint beneath.
Ali's left arm went numb from the shoulder to the elbow. He told this to two people afterward, privately, separately. Both accounts matched. Numb for 40 seconds. The arm of Muhammad Ali, the arm attached to the most famous jab in the history of combat sports, simply stopped working. He took 3 steps to his right, instinctively creating distance, and stood with his left arm hanging at his side, opening and closing his hand, waiting for sensation to return. He didn't go down this time, but he also didn't move toward Bruce Lee. The exchange was over. Everyone in the room understood that. No announcement needed. No formal conclusion. The session simply reached its natural end. The way all true things end. Not with drama, but with a quiet, undeniable settling into stillness. What happened in that gymnasium over the next 20 minutes was, in many ways, more remarkable than the exchanges themselves. Ali and Bruce Lee sat on the mat together, not across from each other, side by side, like two students at the end of a long class. They talked for nearly half an hour. No one recorded it, no one took notes, or if they did, those notes have never surfaced. The people present have given fragments over the years, pieces, impressions, nothing complete. What those fragments suggest is this. Ali asked questions, genuine, probing, intellectually hungry questions about Jeet Kune Do, about the concept of the intercepting fist, about how Bruce Lee trained, how he saw the mechanics of striking at that level. He asked the way only elite competitors ask each other, not to copy, but to understand, to map the territory of another genius's mind. Bruce Lee answered. And then, according to at least 2 witnesses, he did something that surprised everyone present. He asked Ali questions back about the rope-a-dope, about how Ali used psychology as a weapon, how he got inside opponents' heads before a single punch was thrown, about the Louisville lip, the trash talk, the performance, what was strategy and what was genuine, and where did the line between the two disappear. Because Bruce Lee understood, had always understood, that combat was not only physical, the mind was the first battlefield. Ali apparently laughed at that, a real laugh, not the performance laugh he deployed for the press. "Most people think I'm crazy," Ali said. "You're the first person who ever figured out what I was actually doing." Ed Parker, standing nearby pretending not to listen, later said it was the most surreal 45 minutes of his life. 2 of the greatest physical minds of the 20th century sitting on a gymnasium floor in Los Angeles, trading notes, each one recognizing in the other something rare enough that the usual armoring of ego had simply become unnecessary.
They parted without ceremony. Ali stood, shook Bruce Lee's hand with his right hand, his left was still coming fully back online, and held it for a moment longer than a standard handshake. "You ever want to work together?" Ali said. "I'm serious." Bruce Lee nodded. They never met again.
The story spread the way true stories spread, in fragments, inconsistently, years later, through the mouths of people who had to decide how much of it to share and with whom. Ed Parker told it to 5 students. 3 of them told it to others. Dan Inosanto, who has never given a comprehensive public account but has never denied the meeting occurred, has confirmed its essential truth in careful, measured interviews across the decades. Ali himself is the most complex thread. He never told the full story publicly. He mentioned Bruce Lee twice in interviews across the years, both times with a warmth that seemed to come from somewhere private, somewhere unperformed. In 1975, a journalist asked him directly about Bruce Lee, who had died 2 years earlier, and what he thought of him as a fighter. Ali paused. A long pause for Ali, who was never short of words. "That man," he said finally, "was something different, something I didn't have a category for." The journalist asked what he meant. Ali looked away, then back. "I have a category for everything," he said. "I always have. That's how I beat people. I find the category and I dominate the category. Bruce Lee didn't fit in any category I had." He didn't elaborate. The journalist moved to the next question. But the people who were in that gymnasium, the ones who saw Ali sit down on that mat, saw his arm go numb, saw the 2 of them sit side by side talking afterward, they heard that quote and they understood exactly what Ali meant. Bruce Lee never spoke of it publicly at all. That was entirely consistent with who he was. He had a code about these things, learned confrontations, private demonstrations of capability that was almost rigid in its discipline. You didn't talk about what happened on the mat. The mat was sacred, the mat was truth, and truth, Bruce believed, did not need to be announced. What he did do in the months following that afternoon was accelerate.
Those who trained with him in late 1967 and into 1968 noticed something different in his work. A new layer of urgency, a sharpening that seemed to come not from anxiety, but from having encountered a genuinely worthy measuring stick and found exactly where he stood against it. He began refining the straight blast, drilling the shoulder strike, the one that had neutralized Ali's arm, into something even more precise, more devastatingly targeted. He developed new angles of entry specifically designed to neutralize larger, stronger opponents with superior reach. The encounter with Ali didn't humble Bruce Lee. It didn't shake him. It informed him. That was how he processed everything. Every fight, every challenge, every moment of genuine danger was data, was curriculum, was another page in the book he was writing, not on paper, but in his body, in his nervous system, in the vocabulary of movement that would eventually make him a legend. 6 years later, in 1973, Enter the Dragon would make Bruce Lee a global icon. The world would finally see, through the imperfect translation of a movie screen, some fraction of what he was capable of. He died that same year, 27 days before Enter the Dragon was released, 32 years old. The world mourned a movie star. The people who had trained with him, fought alongside him, watched him work, they mourned something more specific and harder to name. They mourned the loss of a living system of thought, a mind that moved. Muhammad Ali outlived him by 43 years. He died in 2016. In all that time, the story of that afternoon in Ed Parker's gymnasium never became public record. No official account, no verified documentation, just fragments, impressions, the careful, partial testimonies of people who understood what they'd witnessed and chose, mostly, to protect it. Some stories are too precise for the record books. Some truths survive better as whispers. Here is what remains. Not the strikes, not the count of seconds,
Not whether Ali's feet truly left the ground or whether memory gilded that detail over time. What remains is the principle. Bruce Lee spent his entire life dismantling one idea, the idea that size determined outcome, that mass was the final word, that the largest body in the room was, by nature, the most dangerous one. He was not arguing for the small man. He was not making a romantic statement about underdogs. He was making a precise, technical, demonstrable claim about the nature of force.
Force is not size. Force is alignment, speed, timing, the intelligent application of energy along the correct vector at the correct moment. A pound of pressure applied at the right angle, at the right instant, to the right target will do more damage than 100 pounds applied incorrectly. This is not philosophy, it is physics. It is also, in the hands of Bruce Lee, something that felt very much like magic. In that gymnasium in Los Angeles in 1967, the most celebrated fighter on the planet sat down on a mat because a 135-pound man applied roughly 6 inches of travel to the correct point of his chest at a speed his nervous system could not process in time to defend against. The man who could float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, the man whose footwork was poetry and whose combinations were literature, sat down. And then he asked to go again. And that, more than the strike, more than the numb arm, more than any of the physical facts of that afternoon, is perhaps the truest legacy of what happened between them. Ali recognized mastery. He recognized it the way only masters can, across discipline, across style, across every difference of size and background and method. He felt it in his chest and in his arm, and he named it the only way he knew how: again. They never built a monument to that afternoon. They never will. There is no footage, no photographs, no contemporaneous press account. There are 15 people who were in that room, most of them dead now, and the stories they told to the people they trusted, and the stories those people carried forward. That's all. Sometimes that's enough. Because some things don't need to be proven to be true. Some things are true in the way that gravity is true, not because someone wrote it down, but because you feel it the moment you stop arguing against it. Bruce Lee was 135 pounds. He was also the most dangerous man in any room he ever walked into, not because of what he could do to you, because of what he understood, about speed, about position, about the space between intention and action, that razor-thin gap where most fighters are already too late, and where Bruce Lee lived, permanently, like it was home. Be water, he once said. Water doesn't announce itself. It doesn't threaten. It doesn't measure itself against the thing in its path. It just moves, and whatever is in its way, mountain, stone, or the greatest heavyweight champion the world had ever seen, eventually yields, not to the water's strength, to its nature. If you made it this far, you already know what Bruce Lee knew. The body is a weapon. The mind is the hand that holds it. And in the hands of someone who truly understands that truth, size means nothing. Speed means everything. And one strike, the right strike, thrown at the right moment in the right direction, can sit a legend down on a gymnasium floor and change the way he sees the world. Subscribe, because the stories they never told you are always the ones worth knowing.
"Touch me," Muhammad Ali said. "Just once. Touch me." He wasn't angry, he was smiling. That was the most dangerous part. Ali stood 6'3", 220 pounds of pure, sculpted, terrifying athleticism. 3-time heavyweight champion of the world, the man who knocked out Sonny Liston, the man who survived 15 brutal rounds with Joe Frazier, the man who governments feared and stadiums worshipped. And across from him stood Bruce Lee, 5'7", 135 pounds soaking wet. The room, a private gymnasium in Los Angeles, 1967, held maybe 15 people. No cameras, no press passes, no ring girls. Just sweat-stained mats, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, and the feeling that something was about to happen that nobody would ever be able to fully explain. Ali looked at Bruce Lee the way a mountain looks at a raindrop. Then Bruce Lee moved. But let's go back, because this story doesn't start in that gymnasium. It starts 6 months earlier in a hotel lobby in New York City when Muhammad Ali said something that would eventually lead to one of the most extraordinary private encounters in martial arts history. Ali had just finished a press conference. He was at the peak of his powers, loud, magnetic, impossible to ignore. Reporters were still gathered around him like planets orbiting a sun. Someone mentioned Bruce Lee, the guy from those kung fu movies, the one breaking boards on television, the little Chinese fella. Ali paused. Then he grinned that famous grin. "He can't hurt me," Ali said. "I don't care how fast he is. A man that small cannot hurt a man this size. Physics doesn't lie." The reporters laughed. Ali laughed. It was printed in 3 newspapers. Bruce Lee read every word.